Hello, family. I'm Greg.
And I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum. My name is John.
So we saw The Fate of the Furious last night. We were second row from the screen. Whoa!
Yeah, I was like, no, that was literally one of those chairs where, like, I don't usually love the recliners, but I was like, this puts my head in the exact position it needs to be to look straight up at the screen.
I could see under Vin Diesel's eyes right now. This movie is a lot of fun. It's a ton of fun.
But you knew that.
But you knew that already.
So Dominic Toretto, he's a librarian living in Verona now. He's researching. He's researching ancient scriptures.
Yeah.
You know, finding the first car ever created so they can go back and, like, mine it for fossils.
This is why our reviews go on too long.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know, we agreed on this and everything.
Vin Diesel, in this movie, Dominic Toretto, starts off with him in Cuba on his honeymoon with Letty, Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah. I thought the movie was fascinating how now that we know Michelle Rodriguez was really a man, that they kind of have like a, you know, like, oh, it's cool that Dominic Toretto is willing to be with a woman who used to be a man.
Yeah, so totally, yeah.
Because the assignment is a documentary about Michelle Rodriguez. Now I'm contributing to why these reviews go on.
This is a great reference because, like, all the 8 people who know what trailer you're talking about are gonna be like, I see that too.
So it starts off with him in Cuba, and you know they you know how the trailer is like, why is Dominic Toretto bad? Yeah. Why has he gone rogue? I'm not ruining anything for you, because the first, like, 10 minutes to show you, like, oh, Dominic Toretto hasn't gone bad. We all knew that already, but the trailer was want you to believe that. But the movie, like, right away shows you, like, oh, he's being manipulated into the situation. Like, of course he is, but the movie doesn't try to hide this fact at all, you know?
The movie starts out by making Dominic Toretto look like the best guy ever.
Yeah.
And
it's one of the cheesiest, like, car chase sequences ever.
It's cheesy as hell, and the thing is, like, for some reason, I really enjoyed the prologue of this movie. It's a big Dom Toretto intro where it's like, oh, he's gonna do a fucking street race again, finally, you know, in Fast and the Furious movie, like, they're gonna actually street race, and it just becomes this, like, crazy superhero, like, the car's on fire and the engine's melting, and he's just using that to gain more power.
And then by the time the race is over, like, Cuba treats him like he's a hero.
Like, someone just hands him a child to kiss and hoist above his head.
I'm like, why? This is just a car. This is just a car race.
And then the tough motherfucker who, like, just tried to pretty much kill him, he shows him, like, mercy, and it's just like, he's just a superhero at the top of this movie. He's just the best guy ever who can get away with anything, and he's totally just and great, and then a couple minutes later, everything goes to shit.
And then Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, you know, they elaborate more on their romance the way they do in all the movies, which is they talk a little sweet and they have sex.
They're in bed for a minute, maybe they kiss a couple times, and that's how we know.
What I do like about this movie, one of the surprises I found of the film was Vin Diesel's obviously not with the crew for most of the film. With most of the film, he's not even interacting with them. And Vin Diesel really committed. Like, sometimes you feel like Vin Diesel's just phoning it in these movies. He's just doing his thing.
I felt like he cared about this.
He cared a lot about this. Like, there was a couple of, like, serious emotional scenes. There's one scene where he starts crying, and I'm like, holy shit, those are some real Vin Diesels here. So, like, it's not just like his eyes are water. Like, those are really dripping. There's a couple of assholes started laughing when he's crying.
Well, that's the thing about this movie. This movie toes a line so much of the time where you're sitting there going, this is kind of silly, although they're very committed to it, and I'm swept up in it anyway. So, like, when those dudes were laughing, I was like, I get you, but also I'm enjoying myself. Yeah, you know, like. And
in Furious 7, The Rock's not really in the movie. Hobbs is not really in Furious 7. Here, he's in it throughout, like a good amount. I'd say the same amount of screen time as like Vin Diesel probably.
He's one of the he's one of the leads of this movie,
and he's leading the crew this time.
Dude, The Rock is like the fucking Hulk in this movie. Like, he and Vin Diesel the most out of anybody both both get to just be superheroes by the time this thing's done.
And I thought this was the best Hobbs we've gotten out of any of the Fast and Furious films. It's cool that he gets to take the leadership of the team.
And it's the most fun Hobbs.
It's the most fun Hobbs, and especially his interaction, his scenes with Jason Statham were fantastic.
Awesome.
They were fantastic scenes. There must have been some type of improv they were having too, because they just keep ripping on each other, and it is like the most delightful part of the movie to me.
I feel like that's something that especially watching, I watched the 7th one yesterday, and then we watched the new one. So much of the ribbing seems like it's just, these people have spent so much time together that they probably just improv it all, because that's the most natural shit in the entire movie to me.
And Kurt Russell, he's having even more fun than he did in the last movie.
Yeah, he's giggling every scene he's in.
He doesn't. Kurt Russell kind of contributes. Like, he's so much fun, but at the same time, he just doesn't seem concerned about anything. Like, no matter how worse the situation gets, he's just, it's just another day in the life of this.
I know you guys got it covered.
Yeah, I'm here to show up and give some expositional dialogue to keep the plot moving, and
I mean
make a couple jokes here or there.
That is what he does most of the time, is like come in to keep the plot moving in the most charming possible way. And yeah, it's like, it seems like Mr. Nobody. I kind of like that choice of just, he doesn't have to worry about anything because his whole job is off the books, so he can just go do whatever he wants.
And Charlize Theron, I thought, did a really good job with the role. I thought she did a very good job, actually.
I don't know if this movie would have worked without her.
I was honestly kind of surprised by how not cliche she did the performance. You know, because she's like the villain in Snow White and the Huntsman, which is a totally different kind of...
You will do this for me, Toretto! Yeah, she's super...
But she kept it subtle. While this is an over-the-top cheese fest, she had the most real performance out of anyone in the film.
Well, yeah, and they give her the... like, she is the person who has to come in and, like, wax philosophical most of the time and, like, have all the big sinister plans. And, like, she really does sell the emotions behind that in a way that's good enough to make the threat of this movie feel real, even when it's completely wacky. Because there's a lot of wacky shit in this movie, but she just took it seriously, which I appreciate, you know?
And the action scenes are just, they're bigger than ever, way bigger than ever. You know, the shots that you saw in the trailer of the cars flying out of the parking garage and the fucking, you know, machine gun on the
tanks and the ice tanks, and the submarine and them like drawing, quartering his car.
It's like bigger than it's ever been, and it's really fun. It's super ridiculous, and I think that's why some people laugh at like the serious moments. Yeah, because there's so much ridiculousness and cheese, and then when the film decides we're gonna get really serious right here, it kind of doesn't land fully. You kind of laugh a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, these movies now they change shape a little bit every time. You know, they get a little bit bigger and a little more broad. This one I noticed they added a lot more humor, like overtly. Like I felt like they had some scene, like The Rock's introduction scene. Like that whole scene is a comedy routine.
Yeah, it's a comedy scene. I thought that was a nice touch because it really does add to the fact that he's a father. Whereas suppose that's like a little thing in Furious 7. Here you're like, this guy is a really committed dad. And they're going way out of their way to truly establish this, you know?
See, that's what I think is smart about what they're doing here and makes up for some of the pitfalls that each one of these falls into, is like they seem to remember little details and they make use of them next time.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, so they build their little mythology, and now these movies are so well oiled, it's like, we know what these people are about. We know we're going to get a few speeches about family. We know that there's going to be some crazy car chase action and some espionage. You know?
That's one thing I actually admired about the film, looking back on it. As cheesy and a little push the family themes have felt, this is the most organic I thought it felt to the franchise. Out of all the installments of the Fast and the Furious, when it talks about family, this was the most like, okay, it's still cheesy, but it really is about family this time.
Well, and they bothered, the thing, you know, it's
like everyone has a family in this movie.
Yeah,
like Diesel, Statham, they all, you know, like there's a family thing in all of this.
Family is like this huge theme. They utilize that so much here, and so yeah, it does become like, these movies to me have this weird tone. Everything is a little bit cheesy because they're so serious about it, but at the same time they're committed to it.
Yeah, they're really committed to it.
And then it made me kind of get like, yeah, family. Yeah. And also they have the benefit of, this is the 8th film, and this ensemble has spent, you know, at least 4 movies now together.
Oh, totally.
Since they really got back on track.
There are some things that I thought definitely fell short in this movie. I understand that this franchise, what's been making it work is embracing the cheese, embracing the ridiculousness, and going bigger and bigger every movie, defying laws of physics of what their characters can survive and can do.
This is like beyond Die Hard 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Of just like the laws of physics don't apply to these people. Any crazy thing that can happen, they have access to, and they're gonna do. Like, this is Mission Impossible.
One of my issues with the film, it surprisingly at times got a little too ridiculous for me. At times, because in terms of its technological advancements. The whole crazy scene you see with the cars flying out and like there's no one in the cars. Like you said, it became like Mission Impossible all of a sudden. It's weird. I don't mind the world of where it's like they're in the world and then there's scenes in the previous installments where Hobbs jumps off the freeway onto the street and lands on a car, or like Vin Diesel catches Letty in the air when they
I remember that from the 6th one where they like fucking catapult and he like catches somebody and lands on top of a different car, and I'm like, well, you know, like every movie has these moments, and I wonder if I just forget how big they are each time. And
all that's completely unrealistic. Here it takes the unrealisticness to a whole new category of technological shit with the God's Eye and then all the shit Charlize Theron can control. That scene with the cars, they're like, we gotta hack the cars, and he's like, there's the one hacker. There's one hacker.
You must
who's like, there's over 1,000 cars. Hack them all. Then he's controlling 1,000 different cars on this one computer.
See, that's the thing, is like you run into this weird place with these. I think the deeper these movies get, it's like I think it's a good direction for them to go to make these big, but they are reaching, to me, you know, kind of a limit. My experience watching this, there were times where, you know, you just suspend disbelief. It's Fast and the Furious, and you have a good time. There are other times where it starts to breach the point where you can, or at least where I could do that. Half of this action is all being controlled from an airplane. with the, like, every scene I was like, all this shit in here has to be so heavy. You got like racks of guns, and you have this like, it's hard enough just to get a normal signal when you've got like information farm that's like fully air conditioned underground somewhere. You guys are in the fucking sky. You got one hacker just typing away, controlling a city's worth of automobiles, and I'm like, you gotta max your system out somehow, or you can't have such fine control, because he's like driving these cars around corners.
I'm like,
if they just, I thought that during that scene, it's like if they only did the scene where it's the parking garage and they're just driving them directly out onto the street, I would be like, cool, just tell them all to go
when
straight,
he's navigating cars through the streets and they're not all crashing into buildings and shit, and other cars and shit.
How are you paying attention to all this? How are you telling them all where to go? These are old cars, half these.
Even with that element, while I thought it got a little too insane for me, it wasn't something where I'm like, nah, I've given up on this film. I was like, all right, okay, I'll readjust.
It just becomes a flaw.
The biggest issue I had with the film was I don't really feel the love for the team dynamic that we've felt from Fast 5 to Furious 7. The team dynamic has been the essential, beyond making it cheesy and ridiculous, the essential ingredient has been the fun, flair, and vibe and the dynamics of the team. Yes.
Having that ensemble in the room together.
It's like there were times where there's so much crazy ridiculousness shit, like that whole car chase scene happening where they're controlling shit and Dominic Toretto's supposed to do something at some point.
Yeah.
They finally cut back to the team after a bunch of craziness, and then Letty's like, it's Dominic. It was that moment where I'm like, I kind of forgot this team was in the movie for a second.
yeah, when they check back in. And that's a problematic thing about this movie, because there's
so much going on.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's like I appreciate, it seems like they really bothered with their plot. So it's like as big and convoluted as everything is, they at least bother to make some actual decisions with like, why don't we try this? Well, let's try that, you know, like, and see that it doesn't work or whatever, or, you know, like, let's really go out of our way to make sure that this at least feels plausible while you're watching it. And that amount of time spent on the struggle with Dominic and paying off just the believability of any of this stuff, you do start to lose time just having fun with the crew.
Well, I feel like, exactly, because the crew's the most essential part, and it's like, while Tyrese is still funny, and while Ludacris is funny, and they do their thing, they're kind of just doing the thing now.
Yeah, it's like they kind of put them on, like, here's your beat and play it, but it doesn't really grow or evolve. It's like when somebody releases an album that's, like, pretty good, but it's not distinct. It's like, there aren't a lot of distinct ensemble moments in this movie where you're, like, having a great time watching the team together. Unless it's, like, The Rock and Jason Statham.
And I see, okay, going to exactly what you said, I feel like what this movie did is because the cast is shrunk. If you think about it, it's shrunk. We lost Gal Gadot, the Asian guy, Paul Walker's not there, and then they don't have Jordana Brewster in there. So the team has shrunk. As much as Paul Walker, like, yes, it's very tragic of his death. I didn't really think the film would feel like it's truly missing something, a very specific ingredient without Paul Walker there. I didn't think I would think that. But when I was watching this film, I actually feel the missing ingredient of Paul Walker. Like, he did bring something very specific to the film, and the whole dynamic chemistry, especially with him and Tyrese and the rest of the crew, not just his scenes with Dom, but he was a very essential part. They're introduced a Scott Eastwood character, who's like the guy working for Kurt Russell's character. He's new to the gang.
He's little nobody.
And he ain't exactly, you know, the Paul Walker replacement, but you could tell they're kind of trying to shift his character in that direction a little bit. Yeah. Especially his interaction with Tyrese, because Paul Walker's character had a very distinct interaction with Tyrese. They're trying to infuse that here. Yeah. I didn't really like how they handled his character.
During the first half of this movie, there were scenes where I felt I could tell the editing had cut things out, you know, dialogue. Totally, and a lot of those scenes were his. And I don't know, like, Scott Eastwood is an odd duck to me, because, like, I can really tell they're trying to make it happen. Like, he's in everything. Like, he pops up in these roles and everything, and I thought he was the most charming I've ever seen him here. But he didn't coalesce into the movie for me. His art's in the right place, but he's not, a replacement for what Paul Walker brought.
Well, going back to the point about Jason Statham and The Rock, what I felt this movie was doing, because the cast has shrunk so much, I felt like they were like, okay, then what we'll do instead of really honing in on the ensemble factor, we'll really pay a lot more attention to our famous players. The Rock, Jason Statham, Vin Diesel, Charlize Theron. These are the famous guys. So we'll give a lot of extra attention and time devoted to them instead of the ensemble as a whole.
Because the ensemble is going to do the grunt work and Tyrese is going to complain.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the film is fun. The film's really fun. It delivers what you'd want over, like, I'd say like 90% of what you want is pretty much there.
It's got, like, everything you want appears at some point. It's just the levels are different now.
Yeah, when I walked out of Fast 5 through Furious 7, when the movie was done, I had euphoria. I was like, that was a great fucking time. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. This time I walked out and I was like, it was fun. It was really fun. But I wasn't like, that was a blast, you know?
Well, because it is more somber. Like, it's a more grim movie than the last couple, I feel like, because so much of it is, like, Vin Diesel's, like, really torn up for most of this movie.
He gives some great scenes. It's like, he gives some great scenes.
That's the weird thing is, like, I feel like they upped certain things, and those things paid off, but at the expense of some other things. It's like they do spend a lot of time really making sure that their plot is kind of working at least, and they do spend a lot of time making it personal, which is like making the choice to make it personal and pitting Dom against the group. I know we're doing that with every franchise now, but I bought it here.
Yeah.
It's just, it does make the movie more of a heavy affair. Even though it's still fun, it's still wacky, like, there is that, and there are times in the movie where it does start to either drag. When the fun shit shows back up, you're like, oh, that's right, this is the movie I'm watching.
Yeah, so exactly. See, the thing is, like, I just don't feel like I would really enjoy it quite as much as at home. I feel like this is a movie for the theater.
Yeah, and if you're a fan, you know already.
Yes.
Like, you know what you're getting into. This might not be your favorite, but you're still gonna enjoy all the shit you enjoy.
I would say it's my least favorite since they revamped the franchise from Fast 5. I would say it's my least favorite of the four, but it still delivers, you know? This still has plenty of fun in it throughout.
And some great top-notch stunts. Some actual great stunts. In fact, that scene where they're drawing and quartering his car in the middle of the city, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, there were some very clever action set pieces for sure. Yeah. And Jason Statham really gets to show off his martial arts in this movie too, which was really cool. They gave him a full-on, like, long action scene where, all right, this is Jason Statham truly kicking ass, you know?
There is some really good ass kicking in this movie from a lot of people. And there are a lot of really humorous moments.
And I like the way it ended.
I did like the way it ended.
I had a really touching ending, and I like the way it ended.
Yeah, I thought F. Gary Gray, he was an odd choice to me at first, and I was like, I think he made it feel like a real movie, which is what I liked.
What are you talking about? Have you seen Straight Outta Compton? Makes perfect sense why he would do this movie.
The Italian Job. I thought the Italian Job halfway through. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I like seeing you here, and I did think that his direction.
It's funny, he directed Statham and Charlize Theron in The Italian Job.
Yeah, which is, like that kind of made me happy to see, and you can feel that energy, and I think he does bring a flavor, to the last couple movies have had a Fast and the Furious flavor, but especially, they take advantage of their globetrotting, and, when they're in Havana, you really feel that. It's got a lot of rhythm, and it's got a lot of life in terms of how they just capture the movie.
And I did appreciate, because I noticed in a lot of films, too, whenever we cut to a different country or city, these giant bold letters on the screen.
Yeah.
And I like how they included it on the street or in the water.
Yeah,
you kind of have to look for it to see where they're saying where they're at.
Yeah, it's I could tell a different person was behind, because James Wan, he can just fucking crank it out, man.
Yeah.
And that's a James, all the James Wan touches are in that movie. And this one, I felt he brought F. Gary Gray brought a different personality that felt like an older movie to me, almost.
Yeah, a little bit.
It felt a little more like it had the spirit of the originals, in the sense that I could really feel the locations.
As much as I enjoy the franchises, I wouldn't mind because they got 2 more slated. And I wouldn't mind if they did one of the 2 a little more subdued. Still make it ridiculous and fun and cheesy, but you don't have to, I don't feel it has to go this insane. Because it got to the point in the movie where I'm like, holy shit, I can see them going to space now.
I thought the same, because it does push the boundaries into, it is just a full-on world domination. This is a superhero movie.
Eventually became about them saving the world, Yeah,
that
was a flat-out dialogue. It's like, oh, they're superheroes now.
Make no mistake, it's an all-out world domination, nuclear fallout is the stakes. This is the top priority on Earth.
Yeah.
And it's if they're doing this more, I think taking a note from what they've done all along, I think it would be smart to change the tone again in a direction we're not necessarily expecting, because after a certain point, you just can't go that much bigger before you're a parody of yourself.
I kind of like them to bring it back to the streets a little more. In some capacity. That's where I thought Fast 5 hit the note perfectly.
Yeah.
Because they're still, it's them being street racers is very vital to them pulling off a heist. So I thought that note worked perfectly.
It's when a band you like releases a pretty good album with some neat tricks on it, but you're okay, now next time I want you to push yourself in a different direction. Try some new. I feel like we've gone as far as this version of Fast and the Furious can go, and I feel like they can change it again.
Yeah, because this got so much more, the franchise has never been character driven, but the ensemble is what has made the franchise so special lately, I think. Ensemble backed with ridiculous action. Ensemble with ridiculous, and here it seemed like less ensemble, more ridiculous action,
Yeah, and I don't know, there are understandable reasons for that, it's they're good at keeping to their course stuff.
And they reveal Helen Mirren, not in the trailers, but they showed stills that Helen Mirren's in the film.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I had no idea.
She's barely in the film. Won't ruin for you who her character is, but she's fun.
Good process of elimination.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to figure out right away who she was.
She's Hobbs's wife.
I'd say overall it succeeded in what it set out to do.
And it makes you want to see these characters more.
Yeah.
So, for whatever complaints we have, it still does that. Because this movie has actually given you something to pick apart in a strange way. It's a Fast and the Furious movie. It's a big, ridiculous, noisy blockbuster. However, they've created their own little mythology that has a flavor all to itself, and now you can break this movie down.
Oh, totally.
Beyond just the regular shit.
Alright, guys, well, you can subscribe to The Real Rejects, Reasons to Jerry on Twitter and Instagram, social media manager at Blumhouse, and click that notification bell, and check out John on the Free-For-All on the Schmodown.
Oh, maybe. Who knows?
Go there.
I might have been on it.